I went from someone who could barely sit still and focus for 10 minutes to someone who has now worked as a software engineer at Fortune 500 companies like Dell Technologies, AMD, Synopsys. I went from someone who had failed 3 subjects in high school to someone who was now the top performing student in both his bachelor's and his master's program. I accomplished all these things while reading books, lifting weights at the gym, and training martial arts 6 days a week. The biggest reason why I was able to flip my life around was because I had finally fixed my attention span and all the other ADHD-like symptoms like getting bored or constantly task switching. I can now perform 4 to 5 hours of deep focused work a day. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 protocols that allowed me to make this transformation possible without the use of any sort of motivation or earth-shattering effort. In my first year of university, I was an ambitious person. I wanted to get top-tier grades. I wanted to read a bunch of books so I can seem smart. I know the reasons were superficial, but that is what I wanted. Also, I really wanted to be someone who was kind of athletic and had a good physique. But what I didn't realize was that these goals that I had would be nearly impossible to reach if I did not overcome these 3 major obstacles, ones that I didn't even know were holding me back. The very first obstacle was a poor attention span. You literally cannot study if you don't have a good attention span. You can't get good grades. Nothing can be built on top of you because you cannot focus and absorb things. I remember having exam week and I was like fully prepped out that, okay, you know what, I'm gonna nail this exam, had things planned out, but then I couldn't sit still for more than 15 minutes before browsing onto social media, and that was days before an exam. It's like my brain refused to focus. It refused to obey me. The next obstacle in my way was consistency. I could never do things for multiple days in a row. Some days I would feel rather motivated, and on those days I would read about 40 pages of a book or lift weights for 2 hours in a row. But then on days where I did not feel motivated, I wouldn't even get out of bed. I would just lay on my couch, surf through social media. Until the age of 23, I had not read a single book cover to cover. Read a couple of chapters, got bored, shut it down, didn't pick it up for weeks. The last obstacle that I was facing was that I constantly used to switch the activities that I'm doing. For example, one week I would decide, you know what, I'm really going to commit all my time and energy to powerlifting, learn more about it, follow a powerlifting program. But then a week later, I would think differently. I would just be like, you know what, I would like to be a marathon runner. And I would like ditch my powerlifting regimen and start a new marathon preparation. And then a week from that point, I would be like, you know what? I actually want to become an MMA fighter. And then I would ditch my powerlifting and my marathon running routine and switch to an entirely new routine. And this had gone on for years and years, me just switching to a new activity. I would call this obstacle as the shiny object syndrome. The moment I saw something fun and exciting, I would leave what I'm currently doing and pursue that. So to sum it up, I had a shortened attention span, I was incredibly inconsistent, and I had what I would call as the shiny object syndrome. I knew that I had to overcome these obstacles to get what I wanted. What I noticed about myself back then was that at any point, if I had any sort of free time, I would fill it up with some sort of activity that was quick and fun. It could be either scrolling through social media or binge watching YouTube videos about street fights or some other stupid compilations. Like, it was truly brain rot content. It wasn't educational at all. I realized that while I was doing these activities, life was quite fun. For a moment, I had numbed myself out, completely sedated myself. But as soon as I was done with these activities, I used to feel a slight dip in my mood. Like, whoa, I feel worse than how I actually felt before starting this activity. Also, I noticed that I did not feel like doing anything hard or productive after. So if I had been doom scrolling on my sofa for a couple of hours, I wouldn't just get up and do my math homework. Like, my math assignment was the last thing that I wanted to touch after that. First, I didn't think much of this. I just thought it was in my head, this is all placebo. But as time went on and I started consuming more of these activities, I started feeling a chronic hint of sadness. Like, I was chronically depressed. Also, I started getting bored rather quickly. So for example, even if I was watching this really entertaining movie, which let's say others found entertaining, I would still find myself skipping scenes in it. And that is when I knew that, whoa, okay, I have a problem. I began to do more research, started reading self-help books, started watching podcasts on neuroscience, neurobiology, and I came to learn that when you do these highly stimulating behaviors, they release a neurochemical in your brain called dopamine. And this is like the neurochemical that is associated with you being happy and motivated. But when it's released in excessive amounts, then you kind of get desensitized to it. And all the other activities which are less stimulating, like reading a book, solving a math assignment, or learning how to code, all these things just pale in comparison and just appear boring to you. Like as a kid back in 4th grade, I clearly remember me enjoying math and science. Like those were my favorite subjects, believe it or not. And then as soon as high school came and as soon as I was introduced to internet and my cell phone, I realized that I had developed a disinterest in these fields. Like these were the last things that I wanted to study. This shift was caused by all the excessive stimulation that I was putting into me. What I then did was I started making a list of all these things that I kind of knew were bad for me. Started from video games, pornography, Netflix, anime, you name it, I had put it on there. Basically everything that I was good at, it was on that list. And then I decided to quit them all cold turkey. And I know that people suggest moderation, do things in moderation, but what I realized is that I would have a really hard time stopping myself from doing that behavior once I had started it. So I found that not even attempting that behavior, quitting it cold turkey was the best solution for me. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. The first 2 to 3 weeks were kind of boring and I was experiencing a bunch of withdrawal symptoms, boredom, emotional volatility, an increase in anxiety and stress levels. But eventually things got better. I once again started enjoying doing these tiny productive things like taking a walk in the sun or learning how to code or reading books, studying math. They now seemed a lot more enjoyable to me. And once you find something enjoyable, then you're bound to pay more attention to it. So just by finding things enjoyable, that in itself increased my attention span significantly. So this is how cutting off brain draining content increased my focus and my motivation levels. Let's go on to the next game changer. So back then, whenever I experienced any kind of negative emotion, be it boredom, stress, rejection, sadness, I would immediately jump towards fast food. Like that was my coping mechanism. That was the way I would sedate myself and start feeling good again. There was this fast food delivery app that was just super convenient. It had 400 plus restaurants. They would deliver it at my doorstep. No social interactions needed. And the situation had gone so bad that at one point I was eating junk, garbage, processed food like 3 times a day, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Back then, what I used to think about fast food is that it's bad only because it's gonna make you a bit fat. And I was a skinny teenager, so I did not mind looking a bit chubby or gaining a few extra pounds. That's all what fast food does, right? Makes you fat. I was wrong. The true damage is what it does to your mind. It destroys your attention span. It makes you emotionally volatile. It increases anxiety. It makes you lose your motivation levels. You pretty much become like a sedated, confused zombie with a bunch of brain fog. That is the true danger of fast food that no one told me about as a kid. Things like chocolates, chips, soda, literally like read their labels. You're gonna see like they have tens of ingredients. Like it looks like a science fiction novel. Some of them you can't even pronounce. These things do not occur in nature. Like this thing did not grow out of earth, or this thing wasn't an animal running around. No, this thing was actually designed by some evil scientist in a lab coat trying to put all these chemicals in it to make this as addictive as possible. Like McDonald's fries have 19 ingredients in them. Like I can identify 2, salt and potatoes. What are the other 17 ingredients? Ask yourself that. And what happens when you consume these other 17 ingredients? Well, your body gets inflamed, your mind gets numbed out, you develop all this brain fog, you start feeling tired, and this is exactly why I was experiencing all these symptoms as a kid. And I used to ask myself, what is wrong with me? Is this how humans are supposed to live? Should I try meditation? No matter what you do, unless and until your diet is clean, you're always going to experience these symptoms. Once I completely eliminated all sort of processed fruit from my diet and moved on to whole natural food, like single ingredient natural food, my attention span basically quadrupled. Literally quadrupled. Went from like 20-25 minutes to straight up 1-2 hours a day. Also, my mood was way better. My stress levels were way better. Anxiety was much lowered. I felt happy. After years, I started feeling happy and motivated. You know when you see kids like they have a spring in their step, they're just excited about life? That was me once again. If you're someone who enjoys information-based content rather than just pointless entertainment, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel because I'm going to be making a lot more of these videos. So back when I was in university, I used to see some kids who were able to focus, and I used to think that these kids are just gifted and I'm not that biologically gifted, and this limitation that I have of lack of focus, it's a permanent thing and nothing can be done about it. And coincidentally, this was the time where I actually first entered a gym, started lifting weights, learned about the concept of progressive overload, that you start with lighter weights and eventually get heavier weights and you build more muscle. So this idea hit me that what if my attention span was more like a muscle? What if it was not like a fixed thing, like the length of my bones? It wasn't fixed. It was something that was malleable. It was something that could be worked on and grown. That was an interesting idea that I had. What I then did was I started viewing my study table as a gym and my study session as basically a gym session, but in this case, I'll be training my focus. And I used to sit there with a stopwatch. The first time I tried this, I could only last like 15 to 20 minutes before I lost focus and I got tired. The next day, I tried the same thing, tried to push myself for 5 minutes longer, and I could last for like 25 to 30 minutes. On the third day, I decided not to increase the duration of one set or one study session. I decided to add another study session. So after finishing study session 1, I took a 10-15 minute break and added study session 2. So basically that was my strategy, to increase the duration of a study session and add more study sessions. Just like the way I thought about weight training, increasing the sets and increasing the reps. If you're going to attempt this, you're going to find that initially it's really hard to focus. Your attention span is a weak muscle, but the more you train, the more sets and the more reps you perform, the more clean food you eat, it is going to grow. For the next 4 weeks, I repeated this, trying to increase my study duration per session and started adding more sessions. And eventually by the end of 4 weeks, I went from being only able to focus for 15 minutes to now being able to focus 4 to 5 hours a day. Now, once you earn your focus back, now you can direct this focus into different channels. Perhaps it's university work, perhaps it's reading books, perhaps it's learning how to code. And this is what is really going to cause you to live up to your potential and grow as a person. If you're someone who's ambitious and would like to achieve a lot in life, but short in attention span, procrastination, and bad habits, they're just really weighing you down, then make sure that you click on the link in the description and book a one-on-one call with me. In this call, we'll discuss where you're currently in life and what your goals are and how I can help you achieve them. I only take on 5 clients at a time, so make sure that you book soon so you don't miss out.